forward to more of your great questions today. And hello to everyone joining us on YouTube Live. Welcome to Wellness Coach. My name's Stefan Ravalli, a host here at Wellness Coach, also a meditation teacher and content creator. I'm joined today by Suzanne Jewell, and we're going to talk about mindful entrepreneurship in part 2 of our series. Today, it's going to be about the innovation mindset, being an innovative entrepreneur. Good to see you, Suzanne. Look forward to today.
Good to see you too, Stefan. Happy Wednesday.
Happy Wednesday. Before we begin, I just want to remind everyone to please use those interactive features and take advantage of Suzanne's expertise. Tap into that with any questions or comments you have. You can also put up your hand. We can enable your mic. You can talk directly to us. And though we're so happy to see you on YouTube Live, we can't talk to you there in this way. It's a one-way communication street. Only on the app can these powerful features be unlocked. So be sure to download it on the Apple App Store or the Google Play Store so you can join in on the next discussion. All right, Suzanne, did you want to introduce yourself a bit and then maybe start us off with a practice to settle us into today's discussion?
I would love to do that. So my name is Suzanne Jewell, and I am the Mindful Entrepreneur, and I also host a radio show called Mindful Mornings Miami. And I'm going to invite us to take a moment to take a dignified seat. Wherever you are, what I'm going to encourage you to do is the way that we meet this moment and the way that we take our seat can often dictate the quality of how we will actually experience this mindful moment that we're going to drop in. So take your seat by putting your feet firmly on the earth wherever you are, and feel yourself with a strong back and a soft front, seated in dignity, meeting this moment in a dignified way, arriving here together, making a mindful, intentional choice to be present in your life right now. And as you feel the body start to settle in the chair, take note, is that seat that you're on a hard seat? Is it soft and pliable? Do you have your chest a little bit forward and your shoulders dropped back so that you get nice breaths of oxygen while we sit here and take a moment to make a regular visit to ourselves? In this practice today, what I'm going to guide us through is how to have what is called beginner's mind. One of the aspects of mindfulness is how to be curious and pay attention. So the first thing I'm going to ask you to be curious about is to have awareness of the environment where you are seated right now. Is it your office? Is your office a cubicle? Is that cubicle situated amongst many other cubicles? Are you maybe in a meditation space at work? Is today a day you're telecommuting from home? Get curious about being able to hold awareness of your space. Does this space feel safe and calm and nurturing? Does it feel normally noisy and vibrant? Again, exercise your curiosity. Pay attention. What is the quality of your space? Now I'm going to invite you to actually take your awareness and your attention outside of this space. Imagine yourself before you came to the office today or wherever you are focusing on work. Were you in the car, on the road? Was it a busy drive into work? Were there a lot of people on the tube? Have awareness that you are capable of sitting in the office, in the space. The mind is so amazing, you are capable of also remembering your ride into the office this day. Now I'm going to invite you to actually journey from whatever it took for you to get to your seat where you are now with curiosity. Remember coming into the door of the building. See whether or not you were numb and on autopilot. Do you remember at all? Did you have your phone and coffee and backpack and computer all in a jumble on your way through the door? Do you remember who you saw first? What were they wearing today? Did you say hello? What was it like to walk past the front of the office and make your way to your space? And while we started in your space at the very beginning, try to become aware of, now that you are visiting it again, is there anything now that is new that you didn't notice? Did someone leave you flowers at your desk? Is your granola bar still sitting there from yesterday? Try to have fresh eyes. This beginner's mind is the idea that we can travel the world over and come back to a place that is very familiar. Yet when we have beginner's mind, we have the ability to see the same thing again for the very first time. This is a practice that is helpful for innovation. It allows us to get out of our box and our autopilot, our numb way of being in the same space at the same level of energy all the time. And in silence, I'm going to offer just a moment for you to try to remember the last time you ever had an awareness of, oh, maybe you saw your pet differently because you happen to have been gone for a long time. And you saw your pet and beheld your pet differently. Maybe you read the same article and you actually understood it better. Try to take into contemplation for a moment something that you have already seen before, but you now have seen it with beginner's mind. And coming back into the room, fluttering your eyes open. Take a nice deep breath and good morning. Happy Wednesday. Good afternoon.
Good morning. Thank you for that, Suzanne. Thank you for taking us deep into a great mindfulness practice and also getting our minds ready to think innovatively.
Welcome, most welcome.
And everyone joining us just now, do let us know how that practice went for you. Any questions that came up about it that you'd like to discuss. Lots can happen when you drop into a space like that. A lot of realization and new questions, which I guess also is the innovative mind. So, innovation. How is mindfulness supportive of innovation, whether it's for yourself or your team in the entrepreneurial context?
one of the reasons I chose to do that practice today, Stefan, the beginner's mind, is that idea that when we have been in a place and it's become so familiar to us that we've literally gone into either autopilot or what is often called trance, we don't see or have capacity to distinguish where there might be differences. And so the ability for us to allow that set of eyes of looking at, and this happens when you fall in love too. Sometimes all of a sudden you'll look at this person you love and you'll realize, oh, I didn't see this in this person before. That is a freshness that really ends up feeding the capacity for innovation. Because really the idea of innovation and entrepreneurialism and startup kind of all belong on the same bar, if we were to put that up on the screen right now in a character generated way. And it means to start fresh. It means to come anew. And so how that applies to anything that you're doing, either in the workspace or with your own project, is, am I able to shift the way that I'm beholding what this experience is? It would be like me asking you virtually to hand me your glasses and me handing you mine. And that would allow me to see it differently.
Right. And this idea for some people might contend with certain people's idea of being a leader or an innovator, because I guess since everything is so technically sophisticated, every industry, that we imagine that to be an innovator or a leader, it's about knowing a lot. We have to know and collect information. But beginner's mind, and I guess also innovation, involves unknowing in a way. How do we know when to start surrendering what we know, in order to maximize this shift of mindset?
So this element that you just brought up is beautiful, because again, going back to the idea of curiosity, when you're curious, you don't project out what it is that you already believe to be true. You are able to actually rest enough and look at, with curiosity, what's actually here? What actually am I beholding? The reason why I brought us outside, I started us in our cubicle and then getting us back in the car, coming back into that same space again, is, do we have the ability to actually see something so that we are not only bringing, oh, this is my place, this is where I always sit, nothing's changed, there's nothing here that's new. And what's most interesting, and this is now even being proven in science, it is not about what it is that we behold, it is in the eye of the beholder. And science is actually demonstrating that. I'll give you a perfect example. I've had many people ask me before, Suzanne, are you someone who sees the glass half empty or half full? My response is neither one of those. I see the glass as refillable. Totally different idea, not what it is that you look at. It's neither this or that. It's a whole different way of being able to look at it. Well, I don't see the glass as half empty or half full. I behold the glass as refillable.
That's also seeing it not as a fixed object, right? It's seeing it as something that can and will change over time too. That broader perspective, that I guess would be so valuable for innovative thinking.
Yes, absolutely.
That is so cool. And Harsha asked a question. I think I ended up asking it. She asked, how does the practice of beginner's mind lead to innovation? So sorry for stealing your thunder, Harsha, by inadvertently asking the question, but let's get deeper into this, since, we value information so much. We value knowledge. We value building models of things and feeling like we got it right, and I feel like, it's like a golden nugget to us when we have knowledge. But in a way, how does knowledge become unconscious, such that we're just kind of like, it's taken for granted and we're like, this is how things are, so that's how they're going to be. And how do we let that happen? And how does it start holding us back? And what do we do about it?
So one of the things that I often turn to, and we talked about this a little bit in the very first class, was the idea that the concept of what's called human-centered design or design thinking, where you actually put the human being at the center of whatever is the problem or the project that you're working on. It is a very beautiful practice that helps you be able to look at something and say, what is the actual challenge or the pain point or the problem that is here? and how are we actually meeting that problem. And then what one does is you look at the person who is actually getting that problem solved, and you map an empathy track around them. You look at, for example, in the idea of those who created Uber, they looked at the taxi cab system, and you actually look at the way that the taxi system is set up, and you realize it entirely services the taxi cab driver. It makes it easy for the taxi cab driver. It makes the person who actually is the taxi cab driver to be able to run their business the way they run their business. But in terms of convenience, it didn't put the customer at the center. Where Uber and Lyft were both brilliant about that is they looked at the pain point, which is, I need a car, I need transportation, I need it now, and I don't want to have to spend $50, and I don't want to have to get on the phone and try to talk to a dispatcher. So the way that that solution got addressed was by looking at something that was already fixed. Well, there's taxis, there's people who need rides, there's airports, but people looked at it and broke the question by saying, who's not being served here properly? And all of a sudden, you've got one business that has literally been disrupted and broken apart, and another business that has arisen and literally democratized the topic of becoming a taxi cab driver.
Right. Yeah, definitely a fascinating model to look at. I've got a question here in the Q&A box from an anonymous user. And they said, how do mindful entrepreneurs plan their day? And I will add, to maximize the innovative mindset.
I love it. I love it. So one of my most important things is to make sure, and you guys are going to all laugh, and I wish I could hear your laughter when I tell you my little tidbit here, and it's called RPM. And it doesn't mean rotations per millimeter or second, whatever it is. It's not about how fast it goes. It's that I rise, I pee, and I meditate. So that's actually what it stands for. And that is actually how I begin the start of my day. And it is the purpose of actually making sure that I prioritize allowing my mind to be able to have a resource from which it is that I can constantly turn to. And then after I do it, and I don't sit for a long time, I sit for maybe 10 minutes. And depending on what kind of a day I've got, if it's something I need to feel strong, I might use a meditation around feeling grounded. There's a great practice around feeling like a mountain. If it's a day that I know I'm going to have a lot of challenge and I need to be really flexible, I might do a practice around flowing water, how to learn to be flexible that day so that I can feel that sensation within me. And then later on in the day, usually about midday, I'll do a drop in for about 3 or 4 minutes to kind of keep that thread strong. So it's not that I sit and, check out for 45 minutes. I do about a maybe 5 to 10 minute practice in the morning. And then partway through the midday, I'll touch back into that. Or if I've ended up having a really stressful and sucky kind of day, I might literally just do a practice that allows me to sort of give myself some nourishment and kind of put my hand on my heart and sort of just say, okay, this too. So this was a bit of a difficult day, and this is okay. And I'm here. And by the way that I take my seat, I'm able to be present.
Definitely, and I can attest to the importance of meditation, especially for when I think that I've got it. Like I think, oh, I'm thinking sharp. I've got lots of energy, and then I drop into meditation, and I realize that I was in fact lost or swept up in a mode of thinking that wasn't as clear, wasn't as perceptive as it could have been, and the mind always comes out in a totally different, refreshed state. And for me, it was an incredible source of creativity in a role that I had to be really innovative, an entrepreneurial role. And I ended up having a lot of influence on an industry that I worked in a short time while working incredibly exhausting hours. So, I mean, if there is one resource, is a great word, meditation is at its core.
Yeah.
And is there any quick practices you can show us for meditation? I know we did a very involved one to begin with.
Absolutely. So let's take again, remembering that the way that you take your seat will be how you meet the moment. So we're going to do that together, taking a dignified seat, putting both your feet solidly on the earth. And I'm going to invite you in this particular moment just to engage that muscle of curiosity about the state of your body. rather than departing or doing any kind of guided visualization, simply start at the top of your head and try to become aware as you move from the top of your head down to your forehead, across the front of your face, taking note of your jaw. Is there any tension in any of these spaces? At a scale of 1 to 5, do things feel very tight at a 5 or very relaxed at a 1? See if between your ears and your shoulders you might be able to offer just a millimeter of extra space. Getting curious, what's here? What is the experience of my body in this moment? Oh, I'm actually pretty relaxed. Or, oh, I'm hungry and I didn't realize how hungry I was. Interesting. Or, oh, my hips feel like I need to get up and go outside in the yard and do a little walk in the grass and maybe do a downward dog. I need to stretch a little. Just become aware, get curious. What is in the physical experience? Letting that awareness go down past the legs, into the knees, and then the shins, and down to the toes. Have you had any awareness of your feet today? Your feet that have taken you everywhere you've gone all day. Now hold an awareness of your body in space. Kind of quietly thanking it and opening your eyes to come back into the space again.
Thank you for that, Suzanne. Guys, let us know if you have any questions about that or this topic in general. We are a bit past 20 minutes, but if Suzanne, you have a bit more time, we can sneak in a few more questions. Definitely, guys, be on your way if you have to be. But thanks for joining me on this victory lap, Suzanne.
Good to see everybody.
All right. So, innovation, we've talked about big, industry disrupting innovations. That's probably, that's like the haymaker everyone's going for. Actually, I've heard my dad, who funds companies like this, say that he's frustrated at the youth that just they want to be superstars, rather than thinking about little ways that they can, really, shape and grow a business over time. And so what is your take on this? Everyone's going for the big industry disruption, but what about the little things we can do day to day in our company or role?
So I think it's an interesting point that you bring up, that while there's a lot of people out there going for that unicorn, that $1 billion valuation, that the real grit of America is built on small businesses. And small businesses have always been what it is that has created the foundation of this country. And it now happens to have the name startup and entrepreneurial all packaged in that. But I really think that one of the most important things that people can be true to themselves about is make the choice that if you have something that is a pain point or a problem you've solved, companies like Zappos got built because someone couldn't go to the mall and get the kind of pair of shoes that he wanted. He ended up going to 5 different stores, had to bring them all home, try them all on, and he realized this doesn't work. So if it's something as simple as young people who have now recognized, there's a young man in Miami who's doing this right now, that he's creating car washes on a digital app and basically being able to call those car washes to wherever someone is going. He just happens to be a kid in high school. He's learned how to code, and he's figured out that there's an immediate vicinity that he's capable of going in. And rather than being someone who mows the lawn for 5 or 10 or 20 bucks that it might cost now, he's created a way to be able to service the people who are in his neighborhood by creating a digital app and being a car wash service. So it's just a bit of the upgraded version of in some ways, delivering a newspaper and figuring out a way to have potentially have tech serve a role. And not always. One of the things that is also true right now, too, is that we are all longing for human touch. I think this is one of the reasons why mindfulness has even entered the corporate spaces, because we're all looking to be able to be more human at work. And that includes being able to have our human experiences at work.
Yeah, and going back to when I was just, being cheeky about how we live in the same town, we haven't met yet because it's 2020. And then Harsha responded, I love this. Too bad. Go and meet her.
Yeah, what a simple concept, right?
Yeah. So I mean, yeah, and this is the nature of the times, that we are very, very digital and disconnected, and that is definitely potentially its own panel too. So so what about innovation at work, which you've touched on? Let's say we don't have our own business. Let's say we don't have a tech-oriented business where everyone thinks all the innovation is happening. How
Yeah.
can we be innovative in these very, sort of, I guess, less, what's the word? Technical, dramatic sort of ways.
I think again, going back to the practice of the idea of curiosity, how can I come to something and be able to bring fresh eyes? One of the things that really is true about this mindset, and we talked about the idea of changing glasses, is how do we get the ability, and when you develop self awareness, which is a part of the mindfulness practice, you also start to develop situational awareness. When you start to become more aware of, this is who I am, this is what I'm feeling, this is where my body is in time and space right now, you start to then develop awareness of those around you. So you might end up being in a business where you realize, gosh, it's kind of clunky the way that people get our product. And it may not have anything to do with tech, but it might be that someone has to actually get in a car and they have to drive there and they have to fill out an application. And I'm talking about, for example, rental services. If you're redoing a house and maybe you want to sand your floors, and all of this has to be done in a very old fashioned way of going to Home Depot. You might be someone that just says, well, let's figure out a different way for us to make this more accessible to people. So it doesn't necessarily have to always be a tech solution. It just may be a matter of, how do I make the path from somebody who wants my service to that which it is that I offer an easier connection point, and how do we do that more simply? I've got a woman in my local farmers market who happens to travel all the time to India, and she gets handmade clothes. She originally was trying to build a whole platform of selling these products online. She ended up figuring out that every time she came back from a trip, going and doing one of these little pop-up stands at the farmers market only once a month drove much more of her revenue by being there physically in person under a little tent than it did for her to spend all the time on trying to build an online platform. People wanted to talk to her about the business she built. They wanted to hear her stories about the fair trade female dyers that were making the actual fabric. And they wanted to talk to her. She was someone who'd gone, she built a business in India. She brought all this stuff back because she handpicked it. So it was a very Etsy kind of feeling experience, but it was in real life, IRL. And I think that's one of the things that people think is necessary, that it has to be tech. In all honesty, some of the most grounded experiences right now are happening IRL, in real life.
Yeah, I could definitely agree with that. And I can speak from experience. Like, firstly, if you're meditating or living mindfully, over time, you're going to start seeing things that others are missing. And right there is a resource for innovation. Often it's aspects of the human experience
Yeah.
that everyone else is going to miss because they're in their heads. And I noticed that happen with me after years of meditating, practicing mindfulness. I'm working in hospitality, and I'm like, all of a sudden, I start to notice that I actually care about how others feel and how I feel while I'm doing the work, as I never had before. And I'm looking around going, oh my God, people who have dedicated their lives to this profession don't care about that. That really is the name of the game. And so it led to me working to innovate that. And it was nothing techie. It was as blood and guts as you can get.
Yep.
Yeah, that's my own experience. And wow, we're at 1 o'clock Eastern time already. So we're at half an hour. I should pass things over to you. If you have any thoughts on this or anything you would like to leave us with around this topic.
Here would be my last little topic of sending you all off to the rest of your week. Let curiosity be your superpower. It's the fifth talked about practice of mindfulness. Pay attention on purpose in the moment, non judgmentally, with curiosity, and that pinky finger kind of gets left off the edge. Literally let curiosity be your superpower because it will change the lens. And my favorite 3-letter word, HMM. Be interested. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much. Carlos says, thanks, Stefan and Susan. No questions, but great session. Have a good one.
And may you walk, live, work, create, and play in a mindful way until we meet again.
Thank you, Suzanne. Check it out next week, guys. This is going to continue the Mindful Entrepreneurship series, and the next topic is staying present. We hope to see you there. Thank you again,
See ya.
Suzanne.
Take care.
Bye-bye.